What we are looking at here is a very rare book. This is called The Art of Ralph McQuarrie. It was a limited edition book of only 2,000 copies. It came out in 2007. It made its debut at Star Wars Celebration 4 in Los Angeles, and it is published by Dreams and Visions Press. To get this book, I was on a 2-year waiting list, and then it still cost me $250. It is 400 pages long and comes in this slipcover. It is out of print. You can't get it anymore unless you buy it used, and just in a search today I found 3 copies. One was $500, one was $600, and the other was $800. So I'll take it out of the slipcover. That's what the back looks like. Here's the binding, and now we'll take a look inside. So we have a foreword by George Lucas, and a preface by the authors John Scoleri and Stan Stice. There's Doug Chiang, who took over for Ralph McQuarrie, starting with the prequels. Technical illustrations from the 1950s. These are paintings he made for NASA. Boeing supersonic aircraft. Skylab. I'm actually a big fan of Skylab. It was actually still in orbit on my first trip to the Kennedy Space Center. And now we get into Star Wars. Book cover illustrations, including books that came out the year after Star Wars. That looks like his concept art for Han Solo. And that looks like his concept art for Chewbacca. So you're not going to see this artwork anywhere else outside of this book, because they've only reprinted the Star Wars art, none of this other stuff. I feel lucky to have this. So this is a 400-page book comprising every bit of artwork that they could find for Ralph McQuarrie, and that should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. You see, the year after this came out, in 2008, Mr. McQuarrie was doing some renovations on his house, and he came across a folder that had more artwork in it, including never-before-seen Star Wars concept art. So a little bit later that year, they had the Star Wars Celebration in Japan, and they took some of the Star Wars art from this book and some of that art from the folder that was just about Star Wars and put it out in a paperback book at that celebration. But that, of course, was not going to be good enough. So in 2010, at Star Wars Celebration 5 in Orlando, which I attended, in fact, it was my very first convention ever, they put on an entire Ralph McQuarrie Art Museum display, where I got to see the original drawings themselves and paintings there in person, and along with it, they put out a book of all of that art from that folder. The book is called A Gallery of Imagination, The Art of Ralph McQuarrie, because that's the name of the exhibit there at Star Wars Celebration, and we'll take a look at that book after we're done with this one. But 2 years after that, in 2012, Ralph McQuarrie died, and then 5 months later, in the same year, there was Star Wars Celebration 6, which was back in Orlando again. I went to that one as well. 4 years after that was the release of Star Wars Art, Ralph McQuarrie, a 2-volume hardcover set from Abram Books in 2016 that's 800 pages long, so 400 pages per volume. This book is 400 pages, so imagine 2 of these together, but just Star Wars art. Like I said, all of this other art has not been reproduced. But you can get those 800 pages of Star Wars art, all by Ralph McQuarrie, on Amazon for only $183 with free overnight shipping. I'm going to include a link so you can go ahead and purchase that through this video. In fact, if you do, it helps me out. I'm also probably going to get it myself because it includes more Star Wars art than is in this book, clearly, because this doesn't have 800 pages of Star Wars art. But look, we got Star Trek. Concept art for Star Trek the Motion Picture. Now, I have all of the other Star Wars art books, the ones for each film, the concept arts, the storyboard stuff. We can look at all those other books in other videos, but just wanted to go through this. We get Close Encounters of the Third Kind concept art. Cocoon. Now, continuing on with the story, Star Wars Celebration came back to Orlando one more time. That was in 2017. They weren't numbering the Star Wars celebrations anymore, but this would have been the 12th overall. And I went to that one as well. It was on my birthday, and it was the only time Harrison Ford ever made an appearance. Now, next year in 2027 will be the next Star Wars Celebration. It'll be the 17th overall. It'll be in Los Angeles for the 50th anniversary of Star Wars. It'll be 10 years since Celebration has taken place in Orlando 3 times over the course of 8 years. It really needs to come back to Orlando. But my plan for 2027, for the 50th anniversary, is to be in Tunisia at the original filming locations of Star Wars. And that takes us right to the Star Wars art. And this is where I plan to be, Tatooine. This is the painting that convinced Anthony Daniels to take the part in the movie, which he did not want to until he saw that painting. I'm looking forward to standing on that ledge in Tunisia. Look, the original concept for the cantina. That was the original design of the Millennium Falcon. You can't see the nose cone, but this was the ship that they would turn into the blockade runner, which you see at the beginning of the film, being chased by the Star Destroyer. They didn't go with the ship design because it looked too similar to the one in the show Space 1999. So they changed it to the version we know and love. Stormtroopers with lightsabers and shields, a bearded, caped Han Solo with a lightsaber, and Leia's just casually waiting for Luke to throw that grappling hook. Check out the early concepts of Darth Vader. At first, he just had a mask on. You could see his hair. Actually, the whole helmet and for Darth Vader was created by Ralph McQuarrie because when he was reading I believe it was the 3rd draft of the script, when he was making the artwork, it had a scene. In fact, it's this scene right here. Darth has to cross over from his ship to, this is Deke Starkiller, cross over to Deke's ship through space. And he said, well, he's going to need some kind of a mask to breathe through. So he gave everyone these masks to breathe through. Now, George Lucas loved that for Darth Vader and kept the idea for it. Deke, of course, went by the wayside. Well, Deke morphed into Luke, but believe it or not, Deke actually made it into the film. Well, not really. He was filmed, but he was cut. So there is the deleted scenes of Tashi Station in Anchorhead, where Luke comes into Fixer and Cammy's garage and runs into Biggs. Back through the window, there are 2 guys playing some kind of like an air hockey game. One of those guys is Deke. I love these original concept logos and stuff. Isn't that great? So there's a ton of stuff in here. I mean, this stuff is crazy. He actually hired Ralph McQuarrie to paint this picture just for a card to be given out because George Lucas was moving Lucasfilm like across town. Here we go. Star Wars Holiday Special concept art. This was actually used. Was it used in the film? I don't believe the figures were on screen. But I swear they show this painting. Maybe it's very, very similar to the matte painting used for the filming. But those designs were used again when we eventually visited the Wookiee home planet in one of the prequel films. And here's original concepts for The Empire Strikes Back, including Darth Vader's castle on the lava, which would not make its debut until the prequel trilogy again. More stuff for Hoth. These actual Hoth Echo Base snow planet type stuff, it was started with the original Star Wars concepts. It just had to be held over for the sequel because he couldn't fit all of these scenes in the movie. That's why you'll hear George Lucas kind of say he wrote out all the films and then he just had to take a middle section for his first movie. That's not exactly true. He wrote one film, gave a little backstory to each of the characters just to know where they were coming from, and then ended up with way too many scenes for one film. So he took the end of the final film, or not even the end of the final film, it's just the end of the whole story, which is the destruction of the Death Star. He used that, and he picked a couple of the planets and locales and just focused on that. When it was a success, he was able to pull out the rest of these concepts, use them for the sequels, and of course, when you get to the end of what became a trilogy, it was the end of the story again. What do? Well, you got to blow up the Death Star again, so he just made another Death Star and blew it up again. It's kind of like Superman. They were filming Superman 1 and 2 together, and the original ending to Superman 2 was, oh look, if you watch my pop-up book video, it has the blue cloud cars. Here they are. And I love this concept painting of Lando Calrissian in that costume. I wish they made a concept figure of it. They made Ralph McQuarrie concept figures of all the characters except Lando. That would have been perfect. Look at that. I love that. So what the heck was I saying? I completely lost my train of thought. Look, concept Boba Fett, all in white, with the concept Lando. So he's got the poncho from the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He wasn't Boba Fett yet. This was the Super Trooper, which George really liked and then said, we're going to go ahead and make that like a special character. It's not just going to be the new updated Stormtrooper. Look at that. I love that. See all the concept Landos? Check out Slave One, the concept version of it. So he may have already decided we're going to make the Super Trooper into a special character, the bounty hunter, but he hadn't worked on the appearance of him yet to start giving him colors of a suit cobbled together from different items. As you can see here, the original. That's another thing that they've changed the history of a bit over time, or a lot, I should say, of Boba Fett. He originally was supposed to be just cobbled bits of armor from different things put together. You know, kind of like when you got to replace the door or the fender or the bumper of your car and you don't have any money, so you're going down to the junkyard and you're getting the same make and model, but they're all different paint jobs. It was kind of that concept. They lost all that. What the heck was I talking about earlier? Oh yeah, I was talking about Superman. So they were making the first two Superman movies together, and they were starting to run out of money and run out of time. So they were told, the director was told, focus on completing the first film. And so he took the ending of the second film, which is where Superman flies around the planet and makes it spin backwards and turn back time, and he put that at the end of the first film. And then he was fired and replaced, and a new director was brought in, and in order for him to meet union rules or whatever, to get a director credit, to take the other director's name off, he had to refilm all the scenes that were shot, and he changed them all and had his own ending, and so the whole movie's different. But if you watch the original director's cut that was released eventually, okay, I'm going to go on another tangent here, and then hopefully I remember where I left off. See the treehouse Wookiee stuff? Ewok stuff? This was originally the Wookiee stuff, and this was originally supposed to be on the Wookiee home planet with Wookiees. It was supposed to be an allegory of Vietnam, where it's the primitive jungle people take on the advanced technological empire, like the Vietnamese versus Americans, because that's the era this was being written in. But because he had used Chewbacca, and Chewbacca turned out to be, intelligent, he could work on mechanical things, he could fix the Millennium Falcon, he was a pilot and stuff, it no longer seemed like a primitive race. So he still wanted to use the same concept, he just chopped them in half. So now instead of being super tall, they're super short, and kind of changed Wookiee around to Ewok, but kept the same treehouse type planet. Anyways, these are all concepts for Coruscant, which again, we would not see till the prequel trilogy. Okay, to pick up where I left off, watch the director's cut that was released of the original idea of what Superman 2 was going to be. They used the scenes that were filmed. The scenes that weren't filmed, they had to use them from rehearsal footage, this and that. And then because the ending was flying around the planet, they just put that back in. And so it's not really anything more than a fun anomaly. It's not really a complete film to watch on its own. You're just basically stuck with what we got. But anyways, it's cool. Okay, so now we're out of Star Wars. Look at this. Commercial illustration. There's the theater where Star Wars debuted. These are from 1990. It's kind of cool. It's called To Dream of Roses. Look, bringing back Cloud City and whatever To Dream of Roses is. Pyramids. This is neat. The Back to the Future ride. I don't remember any of that being on the ride. Oh, for role-playing games. This is cool. Oh, remember this dude? This was the Levi's commercial. Remember, it was like a guy swinging like Tarzan, and this samurai reptilian guy came out swinging the sword. He said like, Levi's, or something like that. Remember that commercial? That was Ralph McQuarrie. Holy cow. So I don't know if any of these concepts made it into actual films. Well, we know the Levi's commercial did, but what about the rest of this stuff? Wow, concepts for a stinking car commercial. Would you buy a car because it had this stuff? No, but I'd go see the movie. I mean, that's cool. I'd buy a car that looked like that. These are neat. Oh, I like all this stuff. Wow, little robot doggy. Hey, cool. Ah, yeah, these are neat. Personal work. All right, look, 1954, 1952, 1949. Oh, he was in the Korean War making sketches. It's very interesting. I like that. Oh, man. Now I really want to draw. Yeah, these are great. I mean, I probably should have zoomed in with the camera just to fit one page at a time, but to flip the page and move the camera, flip the page and move the camera, this would have taken 10 hours, not only to film, but an additional 100 hours to edit. And I already spent enough hours on these videos, so, it's kind of ridiculous. But like I said, hey, you're getting to look at every page in this video, but if you're wanting to buy all of the Star Wars art plus a lot more, follow that link below. And in fact, if you want to see more videos like this, where I get to look through all of these types of books, remember, I have an entire huge library, fills a whole room full of art books and stuff. I will keep making these videos. All you got to do is just subscribe. But not only that, click the like. Watch the video to the end, which will be in the next few minutes, and leave a comment below. Oh, you know what? I can't go just yet because I said we'll take a look at that other book. So we'll do that, and it's short. Don't worry. So here it is. This one I'll zoom in closer for. All right, so let's take a look inside. See, Star Wars Celebration 5. Oh yeah, so I got these two trading cards along with it, which both had Ralph McQuarrie. One where he's doing matte paintings for The Empire Strikes Back, and this one where he actually had a cameo role in Empire Strikes Back. They're in Echo Base, and I guess there's a lot more cards in this series. You can put them together and make a picture of this Yoda painting that Mr. McQuarrie made. Also, Star Wars Celebration 5 was an anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, so that was the theme of that celebration, but we will look through this. I don't want to bend it open too much because probably destroy it. But here we go. So we're getting to look at the artwork from that lost folder. Looks like an older George Lucas himself. cool. This pencil drawing was actually there at Celebration. I took a photo of it. It's on one of my hard drives. But it was cool to see it in person, you know, inches from my face. It was under glass. A skiing Chewbacca in little ski boots in a Santa hat. Oops. Ooh, a different type of Bespin security guard. I like that. I'm going to see that scene. Or Dancing Vader. Look how slim and sleek he looks. See, this is how Darth Vader should always look, with that tunic over the armor. It's only like that in the first film, but it makes him very samurai-esque. And darker, too, because once they put that armor on the outside and you can see it all shiny and silver-like, it changes his whole look. And I don't like it. Oh, interesting. Oh, that's cool. From Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so there we go. So, hope you liked this video, and I'll see you next time.